I'm Sean White, and today we're meditating on how to grill a steak. So I know what some of you might be thinking. How hard is it to grill a steak? Take a steak, throw it on the grill. That's it. Well, for some of us, it's a little bit more of a daunting task. Steaks can be very expensive, and we don't want to mess that up. And also, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but whenever somebody has orders a steak, if it doesn't come out exactly the way they want it, they completely freak out about it. I don't know why that is, but they do. So this is going to be a basic lesson, an introductory on how to grill a steak. So if you are a pit master or a grill master, if you've been grilling steaks your entire life, this is not going to be the video for you, right? You can leave me some comments down below and tell me how you would do it differently. But this is going to be for someone who, if I put them in front of a grill and asked them to grill me up a steak, they'd be a little bit uncomfortable with that. They wouldn't really know where to start. So that's going to be who this video is for. So let's get started. So let's start by getting our grill set up. And the first thing we want to do is make sure that our grill is clean. Nobody wants to cook on a dirty grill. That is just nasty. You wouldn't do that with your pots and pans. You wouldn't take a dirty pan and cook a meal in it. So we're going to do the same thing with our grill. We're going to make sure that it is really clean before we do anything. You might want to get in the habit of cleaning your grill at the end of every session, so then this way, the next time you come back to it, it's already clean and you don't have to worry about anything. So now that our grill is clean, we're going to want to set up two different temperature zones. We're going to set up a really hot side and then a cooler side. Now, why do we want to do this? Well, the reason is we want to have flexibility while we're cooking. So if we take our steak and we give it a good sear on the hot side, then we can move it to the cooler side to finish letting it cook through and getting it to the temperature that we want, right? It's going to give us a lot more flexibility. If we only have scorching hot, then we're probably going to burn the outside of the steak and the inside's still going to be a bit raw. It's kind of the way I like it, but not everybody does. Likewise, if we only have a cooler side, if it's not hot enough, then we're essentially baking our steak, and that we could have just done in the oven. We didn't need to even fire up the grill. So how we're going to achieve this is on a gas grill, we're going to take one side and we're going to turn the burners all the way up. That's going to be our hot side. The other side, we're going to maybe put the burners all the way down or maybe midway. This way we have two different temperature zones to play around with. Now, if you're working with a charcoal grill, then what we're going to do is we're going to pile up our briquettes on one side of the grill and get that side really, really super hot. And then we'll use the other side without the briquettes, kind of as our cooler section where we can cook with a little indirect heating. And then we can just move around the steak as need be to get it into the temperature zone that we want. So now we have our grill set up. Let's go in and start talking about our meat. So the bare bone minimum thing that you need to do is just make sure that you get any excess moisture off the outside of your steak. Why? Well, moisture and heat equals steam. We don't want to steam our steaks, we want to grill our steaks, right? We want to make sure that it gets that caramelization, that browning, that Maillard reaction going. So all you need to do is just take a paper towel or a clean rag and just pat the outside of the steak. Make sure that you get that moisture off. Then hit it with a little salt and pepper, maybe a little olive oil, and you're ready to go. You want to step it up a little bit more? You can take your steak the night before, take it and leave it on a rack uncovered inside your refrigerator. This is going to air dry it out a little bit, maybe hit a little salt on it, it'll draw out a little bit more of that moisture, and then you should be ready to go on the grill as soon as it comes out. If you use a marinade, that's fine. Just make sure that before you go to the grill, you get rid of that excess moisture on the outside so we're not steaming our steak. Now, you might hear a lot of people talk about the fact that you need to take your steak out at least 20 minutes before you go on the grill to let it come up to room temperature. Don't even worry about that. The reality is there's about a 30-degree difference between your refrigerator and your house, probably anywhere from like 40 to 70 degrees. This steak's not going to come up to room temperature at that point in time. It actually doesn't really make much of a difference. I will put a link in the show notes about that, and you can read all about it. All you have to do is Just make sure that before you take your steak out to the grill, you get rid of that excess moisture, give it a little bit of seasoning, and we're ready to go. So now we're outside and we're at our grill, and it's time to have a little fun. So we're going to take our steak and we're going to put it down on the grill, and we're just going to leave it alone for a little bit. So while that's going, let's go over some basic times for grilling a steak. Now, these are going to be for a steak that's about 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick. If you have a steak that's thinner than that, it'll cook a little bit faster. You have a steak that's thicker than that, it's going to take a little bit longer, right? So these are just kind of generic basic times that we're going to go with here. So for a medium rare steak, we're going to go 4 minutes on each side, and that should give us an internal temperature around 135 degrees. For a medium steak, we're going to do 5 minutes each side, internal temperature 145, and for a medium well steak, we're going to do 6 minutes on each side. That should give us about 155 degrees. So what I like to do is I like to give it like 3 flips after the initial placement on the grill. So I'm going to take my steak, I'm going to put it down, I'm going to let it sit for 2 minutes, right? I'm going to do a medium rare. We're going to let it sit for 2 minutes. And then after 2 minutes, I'm going to flip it over to the other side. I'm going to let it go for another 2 minutes. Then I'm going to take the steak, I'm going to flip it, but also give it a quarter turn before I put it back down the grill. The reason why is because I want to make sure that I kind of get that hashtag grill marks on my steak. I want that classic presentation that you think of when you have a grilled steak. So I take it, put it back down. I'm going to give it another 2 minutes there. Then I'm going to flip it one last time, give it 2 minutes. So that gives me 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. That's 4 minutes on each side, 8 minutes in total. That should give me my medium rare temperature inside the steak. Now, one thing that I'd like to point out is when I'm placing my steak, when I'm flipping it and placing it down, I always like to put it down on an area that has been vacated, right? There's nothing there previously. The reason why is because that heat will come up and heat up that grill, heat up the metal, and so when I place the steak down, I'm going to get that good char and those good grill marks. If I take my steak and I keep flipping it in the same spot, the heat from the metal will dissipate into the meat while it's cooking, and you might not get that really good grill marks that you might be looking for. So that being said, I like to make sure that I don't overcrowd my grill with a lot of stuff. I want to make sure that I leave some spaces open so when I flip things, I have a spot to put it. It'll actually make your life a lot easier if you think about like doing a barbecue and you have a lot of stuff on your grill. You don't want to be fighting for space. Also, it also allows the air to kind of flow better around whatever's on your grill and prevent steaming from happening. So once we have our steak to the temperature that we want, then what we're going to do is we're going to let our steak rest for a little bit. All right? So normally I like to let it rest for about 5 minutes. And why do we do this? Well, if you've ever taken a steak and cut into it and the juices just kind of bleed out of it and goes all over the plate and makes a big mess, that's because the steak hadn't been rested. So if you rest your steak, what will happen is all those juices will get reabsorbed back into the meat. Then when you cut into it, you don't have that mess. Easiest way of doing this, just take a piece of tin foil, take your steak, put it inside there, wrap it up, let it sit for 5 minutes. One thing to keep in mind is the fact that there's going to be some residual heat, so there might be a little additional cooking that happens while it's resting. Because of that, I like to make sure that I take my steak off a couple of degrees before what I'm looking to achieve. So then this way, if it cooks a little bit more in the resting process, I haven't overcooked my steak at all. So our steak is all plated and ready to go. Now, before we eat, let's talk about some variables. These are all the things that people are probably talking about in the comments below because they didn't wait to get to this point. So I mentioned it before. The thickness of your steak will make a difference in the length of time for cooking. A thinner steak will cook faster than a thicker steak. So got to be mindful of that. Also, if you have a bone-in steak as opposed to a boneless steak, that is going to be a little bit different. So we have to be mindful of that. Also, I've talked about 2 temperature zones. I talked about a really hot zone and then a cooler zone. That is not an accurate temperature. Right? That is just, it's vague. Basically, that's all it is. It's vague. So my grill might have been hotter than yours, which means it would cook faster. So keep that in mind when you're cooking. Also, your grill may have hot spots. These are different spots on your grill that tend to run hotter than other parts on the grill. I had a grill that the front of the grill closest to me would always cook hotter and faster than the back of the grill. So I had to make sure that I was rotating things around so things didn't cook, overcook in the front and then undercook in the back. So these are all variables that you need to, be concerned about. If you really want to make sure that you're hitting things right, just get a digital meat thermometer. It's the easiest thing in the world. You get one of those, you know what temperature you want to finish out at, then you can kind of just test it periodically, see where you're at, check your times, see where you're at. Then this way you're going to know your grill a little bit better and be able to do things better going forward, and you don't have to think about it as much. In the end, I just want you to play around with this. This is just food and it should be fun, right? It shouldn't be stressful in any way, shape, or form. So I hope you found this educational, and I hope it's given you a little bit of confidence to get behind the grill, throw some steak on, and have a little fun with it. So if you like this video, please click the like button. If you want to hear more of what I got to say, then click the subscribe button or click the bell for notifications. Hope you enjoyed this. So until we speak again, be well, be safe, and be kind to everybody.